Hi everyone, my name is Jimmy, and today we have another interesting topic. Do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel, this is very important to me. Well, let's get started. Story 1 from user Gaia Immortal. My cat did this. Had him for about 3 months, and my dog didn't like him. To be fair, my dog didn't like anybody that wasn't me or food. Husband's dog wasn't too interested in him either. Anyways. So the one day the cat got up onto the counter and found some leftover chicken. Does he eat the chicken? Nope. He knocks a piece off the counter, watches it fall down, my dog taking it and walking to the carpet to eat it. Second dog comes up, tosses another piece off. Dog goes to the carpet. First dog comes back for the next piece. Until all the chicken was gone. Didn't eat a single piece himself. Freak occurrence? No. Cleaning lady kicked the dogs outside to mop. Their hooves were inside. Cat brings the dogs a hoof. My dog runs off with his hoof. Second dog waits for his, picks it up, spits it back out, and waits. Cat runs back inside, grabs another hoof and takes it to him. Dog doesn't want that either. Goes back to fetch a third hoof. Dog finally accepts that one and runs off. Cat goes back to lying on the bookshelf. Edit. Here's a bonus story about my cat. I have this red lighter, and I've had it for almost 4 years now. It's one of my most prized possessions because, come on, it's a lighter that's lasted almost 4 years. After my dog passed away, we got a new friend for the second dog. This new friend liked to steal things and eat them. She got hold of this red lighter and it was gone. A week later in the middle of the night, Cat jumps onto the bed and tries to wake me up. I can hear there's something in his mouth. Very unlike him, and being 3, I wanted nothing to do with him, so I shooed him away. Husband happened to be awake. Cat goes to him, smacks his leg to get his attention, and drops my red lighter on the floor at his feet. Minus 1 piece, it's all good. Husband rewards the cat with scratches and a treat. A few hours later, he came back with another lighter, one which was not mine. I don't know where he found it, but he brought it to me too. Story 2 from user Ramses the Pigeon. Back when I was a kid, my family had an incredibly intelligent Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. She had somehow managed to learn several dozen different words, to the point where we could tell her to go find certain people, to wait for us in certain rooms, or to pick out specific items from her collection of about 15 different toys. This dog would even obey remarkably detailed commands combining those elements, like, go get your hedgehog, then bring it to Dad in his office. Suffice to say, she was a damned remarkable pet. Now this dog's favorite toy was a little stuffed animal that was vaguely shaped like a human, which we referred to as her baby. She would wrestle with it, tote it around the house, and keep it right next to her whenever the family would gather to watch a movie or something. After a year or so of such adventures though, the toy started to get a little bit worn out, so my mother decided to replace it. In an effort to surprise the dog, she discreetly put the old baby in the garbage, then stood in the middle of the living room with the new one behind her back. KOD, my mother called. The dog's name was Cod, though we pronounced every letter. Coyote, come here! As expected, the dog came bounding into the room, a happy spring in her step. Where's your baby? Go get your baby! Everyone expected the dog to approach the corner where her toys were kept, discover the item was missing, then mount a search for it. She'd done similar things in the past, after all, with hide-and-seek being one of the many games she seemingly enjoyed, but rather than behaving as anticipated, Cody trotted over to the trash compactor and started pressing on its foot pedal with her paws. She wasn't heavy enough to get the thing open, but the intention was clear enough. In the end, Cody wound up with 2 babies. Story 3 from user deleted. Well, there was the rat that learned how to run on his hind legs. Or how he kept tricking people by looking cute and cuddly until they went within biting range, at which point he'd drop the facade and strike them. He also was able to understand locks and levers and similar physics, and if he didn't get the food he wanted or the treatment he wanted, he would threaten us. Menacingly moving towards us as if to bite. He would also communicate to us when he wanted something. If the water bottle was empty, he would go to it and start sneezing and rattling the bars. If the cage needed cleaning, he'd get our attention and start sneezing deliberately. We used to call him doing this letters to the editor, as it was always done with the rage of the type of person who writes into Sunday newspapers about issues of the day. He had a human presence and personality. to the degree that his resting expression looked more like the face of a human than a rat. He changed this when luring someone towards him, and he looked almost unrecognizable. Unfortunately, he hated people, but if you treated him with respect, as if he were a human, he liked that. People cooed over him, he would attack them. He hated being a little furry, cute thing too. He was put to sleep about 9 months ago. Not a day goes by that I don't miss the psychotic little bastard. Story 4 from user Hidden Squids. Anytime we were going out and it was a nice day, we'd leave our dog out in the back garden. But every time we came home, he was gone missing, and eventually, an hour later, he would show up outside the front door, which was impossible, because we had walls all around our garden and 2 big side gates that he couldn't have gotten through. One day we decided to try and find out what was happening, so we pretended to leave the house. We put him out back, went and put the alarm on, and closed the front door. We creeped back up to the kitchen window, and we saw him walking in behind our garden shed. We went outside and slowly and quietly walked up to the back of the shed and peered around. Turned out, he was climbing up the garden wall by putting his left 2 paws against the back of the shed and his right 2 paws against the wall and hoisting himself up. There was a small gap between the shed and wall, like some kind of Spider-Man dog freak. He then got to the top of the wall and jumped out into freedom. He's now 18 years old, blind and deaf, but still going strong. Story 5 from user BobDullOfficial. My cat likes to watch when I do dishes. He sits on the counter behind the sink and watches. Well, one day he started handing me silverware, measuring cups, any small items he could carry he would bring to me to wash. About a week after that, he would take them from me and put them in the drawer if I left it open. Well, one day about a month ago, I came home from work and saw him sitting by the sink. I'd left a dirty plate I used for eggs that morning in the sink, but it was sparkling clean, and he had the happiest, proud look I've ever seen. There was a washcloth on the plate, and the tap was dripping. I can only surmise he managed to turn on the water, wash the plate with a washcloth, not hard since nothing was stuck onto it at all, and turn the water back off. Then he must have sat there waiting for me to get back. He's frighteningly smart, and he's shown it in several other ways. One morning I peed and didn't flush because I was tired and forgetful, and I was in the kitchen when I heard the toilet go off, so I checked and he was sitting on top of it, pawing at the handle. There's also the habit he's adopted of turning my computer on for me before I get home. It only wakes up to the power button due to cats, but he figured it out, and every day when I get home, he's sitting on the desk, and the PC is on. Story 6 from user DirtShake. My family had a golden retriever when we were teenagers who was one of the smartest dogs I have ever known. She had a very peculiar and adorable way of letting us know that she was pissed at us. As a puppy, she got in trouble a few times for stealing food off our counters. She most often stole a loaf of bagged bread, but quickly learned that stealing bread was a big no-no after a few times. Well, one Saturday, we had to take a day trip somewhere. I think a football tournament. We had only planned on staying a max of 4 hours, so we just left her home knowing that she wouldn't get in any trouble. I can't remember the details, but circumstances forced us to stay at the tournament for the entire day. So our poor dog was left home all day. We felt terrible and raced home as soon as we could. When we got in our house, we couldn't find her. She normally would greet us at the door and go crazy, but this time we're met with nothing. My parents start looking for her, and after a few minutes, I hear my mom laughing from her room. Our dog had grabbed every single loaf of bread sitting on the counter and carried it to their room, gently placing it on the bed for us to find. Every loaf was perfect, save for a little indentation where she had carried it in her mouth. No puncture marks on the plastic wrapping, no missing pieces, just perfect loaves of bread on my parents' bed. Sitting right next to their bed was our dog, with this smug look on her face that said, "You see what I could have done, but I didn't. Don't leave me home alone again." We never left her home alone for that long again. But every once in a while, my parents would still find a perfect loaf of bread on their bed. I miss that dog. Story 7 from user Clutterstash. Probably gonna be buried, but why not? My family has 3 dogs, 2 GSDs, and a little mutt who's just a bro. Think of your stereotypical stoner dude, and that's him. This isn't about him, though. The two GSDs were rescued through various random circumstance a few years apart. As such, we don't really know much about their raising. All we know is the first, the female, doesn't do great with new people or people she doesn't see often in a place she's decided is hers to protect. The make is S. Big Lug. Lovable, gentle, easygoing, can keep him out around anyone, no problem. My parents took the two GSD to my grandparents' beach house last summer. A bunch of extended family went too. One day, the whole family, who wasn't staying in the house, came over to celebrate my uncle's B-Day, so Mom put the female in a bedroom so she wouldn't bother anyone. The big guy was left out since he's no problem. Well, he decided that he wasn't having any of his sister can't be around the family thing. He walked to the door, opened the doorknob with his mouth, and let her out, and she flies upstairs. He then sat there, proud as with himself, and then proceeded to get both their leads and bring it to my mom as a "we're getting the out of here" move. He understands doorknobs and how to manipulate them. It's insane how smart he is. Story 8 from user Subluxate. I got my cat, Charlie, a new fetch toy recently. It stays in the bedroom because I've been having health issues lately, and since I'm his person, he wants to be in with me. It's shaped like a banana and stuffed with catnip. He loved it as soon as I threw it for him. The first time he played with it, I heard one of the other cats outside the door. Later that night, Charlie was playing with the toy by the door again. Usually when he wants out, he meows in a demanding way. This time, he stopped playing and trilled at the door that murr sound. He did it a couple more times. I got up to open it, and I noticed the toy was in the path where the door would be open enough for him to slip out. He sat on the floor a foot or two back from it, and the cat I'd heard earlier, Toby, pushed his head in the door. Toby is a catnip fiend, and given how strongly the toy smelled of catnip, he'd probably picked up on it before. But the other cats mostly haven't been allowed in the room the last several months because they tend to hurt me by stepping on tender spots, so he didn't try to come in. Charlie sat patiently where he was for a few moments. When Toby didn't try to take the toy, he got up, walked over, sniffed Toby's face, gave him an affectionate headbutt, and walked out past him. As soon as Charlie was out, Toby grabbed the toy and took off with it. Story 9 from user M8AllLinear. One of my best friends in high school had an African gray parrot called Sambo, as well as 3 large dogs. Bear with me here, I've got to set the scene for you. Sambo's cage was near the back door, where the dogs were let out into the backyard a few times a day. There was a string of bells hanging from the handle on the interior side of that door. The dogs would typically spend most of the day lounging in the front of the house, where it was cooler. When it was time to let the dogs out, one of my friend's family would call the dogs to the back of the house by saying, "Come on, dogs." Then, they would open the door, which caused the bells to swing and chime, and wait for the dogs to come running from the front of the house and out to the backyard. Let's say you happened to be in the rear of the house reading a book, and were there to witness Sambo when he got bored. Here's what you might have experienced. Using one of the family members' voices, very distinct and recognizable, he would yell out, "Come on, dogs!" Then, he'd perfectly reproduce the sounds of the door being pried from the weatherproof door jamb, the creak of the hinges, and the chiming of the swinging bells, all in perfect succession. Naturally, the dogs came running excitedly to the back of the house, only to look around, confused, and try to figure out what the hell was happening. Here's the truly worrying part. When the dogs ran to the back of the house, Sambo would sit silently in his cage, observing them closely. But as soon as they began to look for the person whose voice they heard, Sambo would literally laugh out loud. It was a sort of ha 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 chuckle that he borrowed from my friend's dad. He clearly enjoyed his ability to manipulate his housemates to his amusement. I witnessed this myself, and was absolutely floored by the experience. Thanks to everyone who watched to the end. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.